up. Go ahead and be seated. So, we're in the fourth week of Advent. Time flies. So we are in this time of waiting and anticipation of Advent. And I don't know about you, but I don't really feel like I'm waiting much. Like, it feels like Christmas. You know, I've got presents to wrap. I still have some shopping to do. Arranging for the kids to come home. All the things. It feels like we're already at Christmas. And I love it. I love the joy of Christmas, but I don't want to rush through Advent, right? So I want to be able to have these 4 weeks, and in the church, we're still waiting, and we're still in this time of anticipation. So we're in the fourth week. Our first week was a focus on hope, and we thought about stillness and how to be still to experience God. And in the second week of Advent, we talked about peace and removing barriers of all the things that stop us from having peace with God. And last week, we talked about, this is a little bit of a test. Last week, we talked about joy and the joy we have in connection. We talked about the cross, right? So the connection we have with other people and then the connection that we have with God. And today is love, right? So today, after church, Allison from the food bank is going to come and talk to us, and so I wasn't really supposed to preach today, but I want to say a few words about love, because how can you not talk about love? So yesterday, Myra and I went to see the Seattle Men's Chorus. Oh, so good. So it was at Beroya Hall. There's, 200 singers, I guess. And the entire stadium is full. There's not an empty seat. And in fact, I can attest to this because we were in a box at the top of the ceiling, so we could see the heads of the singers. It was fabulous. So much joy. They just, we sang, we laughed. They have beautiful voices. We got to sing with them. And so there's so much joy. People were just cracking up, falling out of their seats, laughing. It was so good. And the director gets up and he talks and he says, it was the 45th year of the Seattle Men's Chorus. And, he said the first year was 1980, at a time when, being a gay men's chorus, standing on stage and singing with joy and celebration was an act of resistance. Right? And it was risky. It was a super brave act. And amazing that 45 years later, they're still doing it. And I think it's still an act of resistance to be full of joy and celebrate. While we were there, it was clear that everybody was just, experiencing the joy of the season. And for me, in addition to joy, I really felt love. And I think, whenever I'm in gay spaces, it's just different for me, right? Because I walk through, it doesn't matter if you're, sitting in our box next to two men who are probably 80 years old, and you look at them and you wonder what their story is, or you walk the, trying to get in the elevator or walk to the concession. But everybody you look at, it's like there's something about sharing breath. With the people that are there and feeling like they're able to look at me, in the eye and say, I see you and I know you and I love you. And it's just different. And I think that that's what love is really about, right? It's seeing people for who they are and loving them. It's stopping long enough to notice. So I saw a documentary last week. And it was about homelessness, and it was filmed here in Seattle. And the cameraman stops and he asks this woman who's living under a bridge and says, what's the hardest thing about being homeless? She stops and she gets a tear, in her eye, and she says, without much hesitation, she says, being invisible. She says, hundreds of people pass me every day. but they don't see me. They don't look at me. They work hard to avert their eyes so they don't have to see me. And she said, without a doubt, the hardest part is just being invisible. And I think it's because we long for people to see us. You know, we long to be recognized for who we are. In our family, we talk about it, and we say this actually pretty often, that the greatest thing that we do as a family is to be known and loved, right? We know each other for all of our weird idiosyncrasies, and we have a couple, you know, and to know them and love that person. And that is the greatest, you know, feeling of love and belonging. And I think that is how we as Christians are called to love, right? And that's today's gospel. So angel comes to Mary and says, guess what? Big surprise, you're going to have a baby. You know, you're going to get pregnant, you're going to have this baby, and this baby's going to be God. And Mary's like, I'm going to go see Elizabeth. You know, and you have to think, why? You know, why did she, the first thing she does after finding out she's pregnant is go travel 85 miles by foot or by donkey. I have to say, I've been pregnant a lot. Not ever the first thing that I would have thought of doing. You know, but she did it because she knew that Elizabeth would see her. She knew that Elizabeth would love her. And that she knew that Elizabeth wouldn't avert her eyes from her pregnant belly, right? And she was right. When Elizabeth sees her, she embraces her, and she says, blessed are you among women. What a greeting is that, right? That's pretty good. And, you know, so if you're doing the Advent devotion, right? So we've been doing this devotion on Substack. Every Thursday in that devotion, we do what's called Visio Divina. So I find a painting or a picture, and I put it up and lead a little bit of a conversation about it, and then really invite people to spend time with the painting themselves. And this week on Thursday, we did a painting called The Visitation. And I didn't write down the author's name, Albertini, I think, or something like that. In this painting, it's exquisite. The colors are really vibrant, but what I love about it is that Elizabeth is holding Mary. I mean, she's like lunging forward and holding on to Mary with one hand, and in her face, she's about this far from Mary's face, just staring into her eyes. And, you know, it has this really intense embrace. And you can't, when you look at the painting, you can't mistake the knowing that's happening between these two women. And you can't mistake the love. It's just incredible. And I think that this is the kind of love that we're called to. Whether it's a stranger or a person at our holiday dinner table, which we will be having this next week, I think that our job is to see them and to know them and love them. And we do this in our personal lives. I think the other thing that we do here at St. Clair's is we do this in our ministries, right? So I mentioned that we're going to have Allison come talk about the food bank. And we're going to do that from now and into the new year. Make sure that we bring in some of the ministries that we work with and really talk about what they do and how they're living out that love as an invitation to all of us to figure out where we can really fit, you know, in those ministries, where we can join, you know, maybe do something even different than we've done in the past. And I think that, you know, that's going to be really important for us to know kind of where we can have our own tangible expression of love. And then I think the last thing that I want to say is, if, you know, you hear this and think, okay, it's great for me to see someone else and to love them, know them and love them, but nobody sees me. And I say God sees you and loves you. God sees each of us and knows us probably better than we know us and loves us. And it is, you know, when we go back to, you know, that first week of hope and stillness and finding those times of quiet, one of the reasons that we do that is because it's the time that we know everything can stop and we can hear God say to us, you are beloved.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm still getting over a cold. So I'll make this very brief. I'd like to introduce Alice Roberts from the Snoqualmie Valley Food Bank. And she's going to talk a little bit about what St. Clair's has done to support the food bank for these many, many years.
All right,
Great.
thank you. Thank you, James.
Yay.
And thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here today because the Essentials Ministry that St. Clair's provides to the food bank makes such a difference in our community. I see a lot of familiar faces, so I'm assuming that most of you know about the Essentials Ministry, which is a once a month distribution of non-food items. But what you may not know is the true impact that this has in our community. We serve at the food bank about 250 families every single week. Last week was over 300, so the need is growing. Things are tough right now with the high cost of rent, gas, groceries. A lot of people are really struggling here in our community. And one of the things that people struggle with are the essentials of daily life. So things like toothpaste, personal hygiene supplies, toilet paper, cleaning supplies, all the things that are so important for health and just dignity. And those are things that people can't spend SNAP benefits on or food stamps. So these are things that are just so important to people. When I am talking to new clients registering at the food bank and I talk through, get to know them a little bit, understand about some of the challenges that they're facing, how we can help them, refer them out to other organizations, and tell them all about what the food bank offers and the different organizations of the food bank. And I tell them about the Essentials Ministry, and every single time it's, oh, wow, that's so great. It's one of the things that we see our highest days in terms of volume on days when St. Clair's is there. So I am so thankful for all of you. I know that it is a huge effort, and thank you, Cindy, for your leadership, and thank you everyone for being there for our community. Just this past distribution, I had a client come into the office and tell me she's a single mom, multiple kids. She's working multiple jobs here in the Valley, trying to make it work, and she told me, "You don't know how much this means to me. Rent is so high, I have almost nothing left over, and the money that I'm saving by this," and I could see in her cart, she had toilet paper, she had all of the things from Essentials. She said, the money that I'm saving from this is going towards my kids. It's making sure that my kids have what they need. We also see a lot of people working in the Valley. The rent is just so high that it's challenging for folks. We also have a lot of seniors that have been born and raised here that are really struggling on fixed incomes. And so thank you for your ministry. It truly does make a difference, both in terms of not just the physical items that you're providing to people, but the sense of community that you're providing hope. You're providing a sense that people aren't alone, that there are people here with them. I'm always so appreciative of the volunteers and how friendly and dignified and welcoming you are to people who coming to the food bank is not always, the best part of their day. And there may be a lot of trauma or a lot of struggles going on, but being able to have the community taking care of the community is a really, really wonderful thing. One of the things I love about the food bank, and St. Clair's really personifies that. So a very deep, heartfelt thank you to everyone involved with the ministry. It does make an incredible difference.